Hi, everyone. It's Carol Greve, Food Integrity Now, and I'm here today with Zen Honeycutt, who is the founder and director of Moms Across America. She's been on the show a couple of times, so you know who she is, and you can go to her website to find out more about her, momsacrossamerica.org, in case you don't. And the reason I invited Zen to be on the show today was because recently, I think it was last Friday, the 23rd,
Yes.
Zen and some others had a meeting at the EPA in Washington, a really important meeting, and I wanted to share this information with you. So first of all, Zen, tell us what transpired at the meeting and maybe who some of the participants were that also went to the meeting with you.
Great. Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity, Carol. It's important that everybody knows that anybody can do what we did. It just takes the request and it takes, being prepared. And in this case, what really helped was having a lot of people call the EPA and ask them to revoke the license of glyphosate. And when that was happening, it was a couple of weeks ago that we ran this campaign because of the deadline. I believe at the time the deadline was in the end of July or beginning of August, and then they extended the deadline. So now the deadline for the revoking the license of glyphosate is September 3rd.
Oh, great. So there's still time, and we'll get that information out to people also. They can do. There's still time.
So I believe it was July. Yes, it was July 7th. We thought that was the end of the deadline at the time. And so we did a mad push all through June. We had people email and call and write and send videos and all of that to the EPA. And during that time, I asked for a meeting for Moms Across America with the EPA. Again, this is the third time that I personally have met with them, with different groups of people, scientists and doctors and lawyers and moms and all of that. And this time, we just focused in on which experts would be the best and most supportive for them to make this very difficult decision. And so what we did was we had Dr. Zach Bush. He was remote because he was in a conference, but he was on the conference call with us. We were actually in the room.
He is so great. He was
wonderful. Yeah. And we had, there were 7 of us and on our team that visited, and I believe 10 of them, and the EPA members were people from the Pesticide Review Board and also from the Health Effects Division. I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted because I'm hearing a lot of feedback, but you're not hearing that?
I'm not hearing any feedback.
Okay, all right, that's good. Okay.
Hopefully our listeners aren't hearing feedback.
Okay, so we'll just keep going. If we have to do this again because of the feedback, I'll do it again. But
okay.
So there was the Pesticide Review Board people there, and there was a senior toxicologist. There were many women from the EPA Health Effects Division, which was new. The first or second time that I went and met with them, the Health Effects Division people were not there. And that was very interesting. And what we learned at the meeting was that they were the people that pushed for the National Toxicology Program to actually test the adjuvants or the other ingredients in Roundup and glyphosate-based herbicides besides glyphosate. Because most people, well, on your show, most people may know this, but most people in America don't know that when there's a product sitting on the shelf, the final formulation of that herbicide or pesticide has not been tested for safety. Only one declared chemical ingredient in that product was actually tested for safety. So the EPA, due to the pressure, they said due to the amount of attention that this herbicide received, that glyphosate received, we decided to test for the adjuvants for, toxicity. And so the people in that room were some of the people that actually made that happen. And so I felt like that was a very good thing, to have happen and to be in the room with them. And so we thanked them profusely. And, we were very glad about that. Let me just try to plug in my headphones. 1 second. With this sound.
Okay.
Seeing as you're not hearing it. Okay, can you still hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, all right, this might be helping. Okay.
You know what? This is the beauty of live. I'm going to shut my window here, and maybe there's some outside noise. Just one.
No, I don't hear any noise now. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for your patience, everybody. Okay, so there were about 10 of them. There were about 7 of us. We had Dr. Zach Bush remotely calling in, which was fabulous. We had a farmer from Montana come fly all the way from Montana from this meeting. He was a regenerative agriculture farmer has been for about 30 years, and his name is Bob Finn, and he wrote this book, Grain by Grain, which is out now, and it's fantastic. And so he was able to tell them all about how farmers can farm without using any glyphosate at all, and the swathing techniques and all of that. And we also had a lab technician from a laboratory that has tested for more glyphosate samples than anyone in the world. And
wow.
So he was able to talk about the prevalence of glyphosate showing up in the food supply, and actually showed, I'm sorry I don't have the chart with me right now, but actually showed a chart of, maybe I do, of glyphosate contamination. And no, I don't right now, so I can show it to you later. But there was a chart that showed high levels of glyphosate, and every day the gentleman was tested for glyphosate, and as soon as he went organic, it went down like this. And it went along eating organic, I believe this was for about 10 days. And then on probably day 5, he decided to have a slice of pizza at a birthday party, and it went up like this. And then it took 2 days for it to go back down. And then it continued on. So eating organic absolutely makes a difference, and they have the scientific data to prove that and to show that in the thousands of tests they have on glyphosate, not only in urine, but in our food supply as well. And so he got to share about the prevalence of glyphosate, and he was also involved in a study that showed glyphosate in urine, how it had increased, hundreds of percentages, right, in the past 10 or 20 years, the presence of glyphosate in human urine.
Yeah.
So that was very important. Then we had a lovely student. Now she's no longer a student. She just graduated. Mackenzie Feldman from Herbicide Free UC, and she is the student who led, along with some other students, the initiative to get the UCs, the university campuses in California, to revoke the license of glyphosate. I mean, not revoke. Sorry, to no longer use glyphosate. And so she was able to share about the importance of that, and why she did that, and what the landscapers used instead, what they are using instead, and how it's simply not necessary for glyphosate herbicides to be used in landscaping at all. That many landscapers are now using, many other methods besides glyphosate. So that was very good. And she got a little emotional, and she started to cry a little, and she begged them. She said, "I'm not asking you, I am begging you to revoke the license of glyphosate for the sake of your children, for the sake of your future children." And it was very emotional, and I think she may have really touched some hearts in the room. So it wasn't planned, but that's just what happened. And then the real zinger was we had a former industry scientist there, a woman who worked at DuPont for probably 20 years as a industrial chemist, or you may also say an organic chemist. And so she worked on the chemicals and the approval, all of that. And so she knew exactly what the process was. And she was able to say to them, like, listen, we know that when a scientist is applying for approval, to the EPA, that in that process, they're allowed to, let's just say a bunch of the rats start dying, they're allowed to take those rats out and keep going with the study and not include those deaths of those rats.
What?
Yes. They are allowed to eliminate data that is not in their favor and continue on with the study. and present a study that is in their favor. And she said, and we know, and, you know, and she didn't say it exactly how I just said it, but that was the gist of what she said. And she's like, basically, we know that this is going on. And what I'm asking from you is to set a higher bar, to ask more of these chemical companies, because people are getting sick. And I know this firsthand, she said, because of my health issues. She basically got fibromyalgia. And so she went down this road of trying to figure out what was going on and why she had that. She went 100% organic. Her fibromyalgia completely went away. She runs 52 miles a week. And she's never had better mental clarity in her life. And she's in her late 50s, I think, maybe mid 50s. And she looks fabulous. She looks like she's in her 40s, you know?
Well, you know, that story is just one of many where people have all these ill health effects, and then they switch to organic and everything changes. I know, you know, personally,
this
happens to your children.
And this was particularly important because this was a DuPont scientist.
Yes.
And so she was able to share this with them and relate to them and talk to them about the process in a way that nobody else could. And she was also able to address the four most important studies that we felt that they should put their attention on. And the majority of them were about the liver disease, you know, showing that Roundup and glyphosate-based herbicides can cause liver disease at ultra low levels. And we mean, you know, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And so those are the studies that we feel really could make a difference, and that we drew their attention to. And just to give you an example of what we presented to them, this is what we presented in 2014, right after we found out that glyphosate was in breast milk. Moms Across America tested. And so these were studies that were from 2007 till 2014. It looks like there were 42 different studies here. But that actually, this might be categorized. I think there were closer to 100. So there might be, you know, more than one study on each one. And then this one is the new binder that we brought on Friday. And this is 92 different studies and papers. And they're categorized by harm, by the methodology of harm. So this one, for instance, is genotoxicity and mutagenicity, and we have a lot of studies here. And then there's some based on liver damage, you know, and harm to wildlife. And everything that you're seeing in blue, all of these tabs, there's 32 studies here that Charles Benbrook sent me on a thumb drive, because they're from 2016 or maybe 2014 and up. They were only the newer studies. But the ones that were in blue were the ones that the IARC, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, reviewed for their review process. And they found glyphosate to be carcinogenic, right? Because of these studies. Now, lo and behold, these are independent peer-reviewed studies, right? Independent scientists.
Right.
And did the EPA review them? What do you think?
No,
they didn't. So we put the tabs on them to show them these are the studies that you did not review, that they did not review, right? And which they did not consider for their assessment that glyphosate is not carcinogenic. And these independent peer-reviewed studies, 82% of them found at least one incidence of genotoxicity, which it means leads to cancer. So,
right.
Of course, the studies that the EPA reviewed were, I think, all but one. They were all but one were industry studies, and all but one showed that glyphosate was not carcinogenic. Right. So there's clearly cherry picking going on here, and we didn't say it that way to the EPA in the meeting because we're trying to get, you know, partnership going on. But how it was presented was really like, listen, this is the information that the Monsanto trial lawyers are looking at. All of them, they have access to all of this information. And you don't. You're not reviewing all of the information, independent peer-reviewed studies, in order to make a fair assessment. And these Monsanto these Monsanto trials are coming out in favor of the plaintiffs. And there's a reason for that. It's because the lawyers have access to all of this information, and we want you to have access to all of the information as well to make a fair decision that's in the best interest of of our people. And I'm sorry I don't have this one other piece of paper, but there's one more piece of paper that I gave to them, which showed the trillions of dollars of healthcare costs. So part of our argument was that we simply can't afford to use glyphosate, because what they do is they weigh the benefit versus the cost, right? So if a chemical is very efficient at killing weeds, but it kills some birds too, they have to outweigh, does the benefit outweigh the cost? I mean, they have to assess, does the benefit outweigh the cost? So I asked them, 5 years ago when we found glyphosate in breast milk, and I said, why can't you recall it? They said that glyphosate would not show up in breast milk, and it is. So it's not doing what the manufacturer said it would do, and I'm just wondering, like, when a car seat manufacturer says its product will do something and then it doesn't do that, it gets recalled.
Right.
So why can't you recall Roundup? It's not doing what the manufacturer said it would do. And they said, well, we have to, assess the benefits versus the cost. And usually the benefits outweigh the cost. And I said, so what does that mean? Let's just say there's a chemical that, the manufacturer says it won't kill birds, but suddenly consumers, environmentalists say it starts to kill birds. What do you do? Do you go out and count dead birds? And they said, yes. I said, okay, so then there's a certain number of dead birds that would outweigh the benefit, right? There's like a collateral damage. There's a number that's acceptable, and then there's a number that's not acceptable. And he said, yes. And I said, okay, so what is that number for our children?
Oh, good one.
How many of our children have to get sick in order for the cost to outweigh the benefits of glyphosate? He said, well, we simply have a difference of opinion.
Yeah. Well,
answer
so
that.
crazy.
So I have to show them that that there is a great cost. And right now it's called $3.5 trillion of healthcare costs in America.
Yeah. And that is so important to point out to them. And it can be really frustrating because we don't have the precautionary principle like Europe does.
Yes, that's exactly that Mackenzie brought up.
Yeah, and it's really frustrating. But so overall, do you think the meeting went well? Do you think they got new information? What's your take on that?
So I think from our side, the meeting went great. I mean, the people that we brought were extremely useful in the conversation to present the information that we had. We came at it from health, from the presence of glyphosate, the alternatives. We made it very clear that there's many alternatives to use, that they don't need glyphosate.
Yeah.
And the farmer actually stressed the economic impact on the American farmers. I mean, they are not able to export their crops when over 10 parts per billion shows up of glyphosate in Europe and in Japan and many other places of the country. So their ability to make money, to live, their livelihood, and the U.S. economy is being impacted by the contamination of glyphosate. So we made very good arguments. And what was good was that at the end of the meeting, the EPA officials, or the staff members, did engage with us and talked with us, and we had conversation. We basically asked them, what else do you need to make this decision? And they did tell us that they need studies in a certain way, and they're also looking for a certain kind of study that I can't describe because I'm not a scientist, but Zach Bush, thank God, who was on the call, knew exactly what they were talking about. So he and his team are on that, and we will make sure to have these studies that we presented. I don't know why delivering them in person is not acceptable, but apparently we need to resubmit them through the docket. So that's something that somebody needs to do this week, and before the final comment period. So
if people want to see some of these studies, Zen, how can they do that?
So they can go to momsacrossamerica.org and click on data, and most of the studies are there. There are, as I said, I just got some of the additional studies from Charles Benbrook
Okay.
And they are, I believe they would all be on his wife's website on Hygeia Analytics. Hygeia is Hy, as in yo-yo, Hygeia, Hygeia Analytics. And on his website, he has a fabulous paper which describes why the IARC found glyphosate to be carcinogenic and the US EPA did not. And he explains that whole thing that I just told you about. And on that, he lists all of the scientific studies that IARC looked at and the EPA looked at and the ones they did not and all of that. And it's really a fabulous expose of cherry picking and what goes on. So they can find more of those studies there. But on momsacrossamerica.org under data, we have probably 100 studies already, some of them a little bit older, but these are the ones that are from, I think, 2014 or 2016 and up. So these are all new studies. And this is not the extent of all. There are many more. This is just what was pointed out to us and what we had time to download and print out and all of that.
Such great information, because so often when you're talking about GMOs and glyphosate, people say, well, where are the studies? And, direct them to momsacrossamerica.org and data, and you can find the studies there.
They're out there on many websites. Like I said, Hygeia Analytics has them. I'm sure GM Watch has a ton of them. Sustainable Pulse.
GMO Free USA.
GMO Free USA has thousands probably by now.
Yeah. So they're out there. It just takes, it doesn't take a whole lot, but if somebody really wants to know, they can find the information. So, well, we've got about 5 minutes left here. And first of all, I wanted to thank you in all your efforts going to the EPA. And on the show page, I will post a link where people can comment. And it's best, you have until September 3rd. It's best if you have a personal story, but even if you don't, and if you want to cite a study, you can go to Zen's website again and make it as personal as you can, but also include a study if you have that. And if we get enough people to do this, that's what it's going to take. People getting involved and people saying, no, we do not want glyphosate in our environment at all.
Yes, absolutely.
So I wanted to cover something else while I have you on the video here. I'm so excited about what Moms Across America is doing. Can you share with our listeners what is the gold standard?
Oh, we're so excited. Thank you for bringing it up. Yes, we're launching a whole new initiative called the Moms Across America Gold Standard. But I have to say, it's not really that new. This is what we've been working towards for 6 years. Our goal has been to transform the food industry and regain or recover health in America. And this is simply a seal of approval that shows this company, this brand, is doing what we ask of them, what we mothers want. And by we, I don't just mean me and you. I mean, mothers that know what's going on with the food supply all across America and frankly around the world, because this seal of approval, it's a multi-tiered, so you can get either 3, 4, or 5 gold stars. So you can get in the door if you don't have junk in your food, like red food dyes and carrageenan and stuff like that, some basic additives that we just do not want. And it's organic certified. Now, if it's biodynamic, even better, but it has to at least be organic. And tested for glyphosate. So it's a 3-star level. And the reason why we include glyphosate is because it's the most widely used herbicide in the world. And the organic industry, unfortunately, the regulators are not testing for it. And there has been contamination. And we just want to make sure that we are not consuming glyphosate as much as possible. Now, we know that there will be contamination. So unfortunately, we do have to allow for a very tiny amount because the companies that are doing the best they can are finding extremely low levels, but the level that is up to acceptable, that amount for us is 10 parts per billion. That's what is the limit. That's the limit in Europe and in Japan. And at that level, it is very, very clear that the farmer is not intentionally using glyphosate, right? Yeah. So what that level is not a safe level for us. That is a best practices level. And
Yeah.
so that's clear that they are using best practices. So it's organic, it doesn't have junk in it, and it's glyphosate tested, right? It could be detox projects, glyphosate residue free, or it could just be tested at a lab that we've specified has good methodology. And then at the 4 stars, we add in non-GMO project verified, heavy metal, and multi-residue testing from other pesticides, right? Because there's many other pesticides that are being used, and we're adding in testing for up to 400 other pesticides. And so that is way stronger than what's currently out there, and very exciting when a company can pass that. And most organic companies can pass that the testing and the levels that we've set.
That's wonderful. And how can people find out more about this Gold Star and the testing on your web? Is it on your website yet?
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry, I was giving you the long answer, but yes, momsacrossamerica.org. And I just want to mention at the 5th star level,
I forgot about the 5th one.
Yeah, at the 5th star level, they'll be they need to use bioplastics or low to no pollution packaging, like glass with biodegradable labels. They need to support regenerative organic agriculture too, the shift from the farmers going from conventional to regenerative organic, and have fair trade or pay fair labor, like pay better than minimum wage. So we have the company sign a lot of affidavits, we do spot checks, and we're just making sure that companies that are doing the right thing get acknowledged, and they get that gold seal on their label. When you go to the grocery store and you see that, you're going to be able to know that that company is going above and beyond to do the right thing and to make food that's not only safe for our families, but safe for the planet and healthy for the planet. And I am just super excited about it. We're working with some fantastic companies that are doing things that are beyond even what I thought was possible. Like they're really going above and beyond. So it's very exciting.
Such high integrity companies to get that 5th star. That's wonderful. Well, again, thank you for being a guest today. I wanted to get this information out about the EPA and what an amazing meeting you had, and also give people to write a comment to the EPA. And again, I'll put the link on the page, and then check out the gold standard on momscrossamerica.org. And what's that under again?
We have, on the second slider, there's a link directly to the page, but it's also under Health Solutions, and it's the gold standard under Health Solutions. It's just launching. In September, we'll start to be able to talk about the companies that we're talking with. It will take some time to get out into the grocery stores, but we are very excited to be working with great companies.
Oh, that's amazing work. Thank you so much, Zen. As always, you're just you're a guru. I really appreciate all the work you do. So thank you, Zen Honeycutt, Moms Across America. And please share this video with everyone. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Carol.
Bye.
Take care.